Hey folks, if you're joining our live stream today, it is September the 25th, and we're going over the second half of chapter 10. It has to do with preparation for the final Persian War. And the terms we have on the board is the size of Xerxes' army, supplies, the Council of Corinth, and the Oracle. So we're giving the kids in class a little bit of time to go over that real quick. Then we'll give them some time to discuss it before we begin. So just hang tight.
Hello, ma'am.
You can get these at the end of class.
How about 3 members for 10 class, please? It is a
Go straight to the train.
that's only.
All right, get a few more minutes.
Xerxes told his people to fight the ground, to like beat it.
I believe the
The ocean.
Hellespont is a river.
A river? Oh,
No,
right, it's a river.
Yeah, the Hellespont's, well, it's a waterway between the Black Sea and.
So he just had them like just like punch the.
Whip it, yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you could say that's an example of what the Greeks would have called hubris.
What's that stock image of like a person punching some water?
Guys, you just see one guy.
Yeah. Oh, how dare you. And then he cut off that into the rebuild it.
Yep.
Smart brain. They saw an eclipse and they were like, what does it mean?
They were really into eclipses have been seen as major things for a long time.
He wants to go back to his middle.
And then he just yoked some gold into the river and it's like, okay.
That's right.
Oh, right, I forgot that you weren't here either.
Yeah, he's ever sitting away.
All right, folks, so you got a couple minutes to go ahead, turn to your neighbors and discuss the terms that we have up on the board. So once again, we have the size of Xerxes' army, supplies,
They were
Council of Corinth,
capricent.
and the Oracle.
Wait, there's an actual word called capricent, like capricent.
A word? What?
They were all richly capricent.
Yeah.
That's a Capri Sun.
Yeah, caprice means like happy, I think. So
Clothed and decked out in decorative coverings.
all All right, folks, you may discuss with your neighbors the following term.
I'm not done reading.
Okay,
Yes,
well, you should do that.
I was 1,700,000.
You okay?
Yeah.
You ever okay?
No.
Okay.
Orange or only red and blue.
This chariot was so revered that the rider couldn't ride it. He would have to drive it while standing behind it.
Yep.
Wow, big brain.
Yeah, I guess it was like their Ark of the Covenant kind of thing.
You couldn't like carry the Ark of the Covenant. You had to carry it on your shoulders.
Yeah, like poles.
You couldn't put it on horses.
Huh?
Chariot, that you don't like a chariot.
You stand behind it, hold the reins, and just run. You just
No. You're right.
you just like
Well, you could see their similar symbology because that was their god of the sun, kind of like Apollo. And remember, Apollo had a
They get
chariot.
us- dude, you could get if they had skateboards, you could stand on the skateboard and just ride the skateboard behind the chariot.
Those are red.
Okay. Yeah.
What are you gonna do for the weekend this morning?
What I always do.
Which is?
Saturday, me and my kids go to our little gym thing for about 4 hours. And then we'll do some chores and stuff. And they got a birthday party they're going to after that.
Oh, I'm going to a birthday party.
So
How many birthdays?
they're probably going to be all sweaty and stuff. Yeah, I take them to a little MMA gym. I guess. And Sunday, you got normal stuff like church and
I'm going to volleyball Saturday.
more chores.
Ryan's over here double booked.
I'm going to a birthday party today too.
How do you have the time to do all that stuff?
Ryan goes to every birthday party just to get good food. That's why I
There
have
you
so
go.
much candy.
That's true.
How do you literally have time to do all that? Like, read the Iliad, go to parties, my god.
No.
Goes to a choir. Otherwise,
Good
no
one.
one would do that.
All right, one more minute. You had a question?
Wait, you're too tidy.
No? Go ahead, speak it. Okay.
Yeah, we do. Look.
It's mind blowing.
I know, right?
Rocky Science of Pop, please squish on the chosen.
All right, it sounds like you are done. I'll go ahead and stop the timer.
Yeah.
Wait, did you want to
The Spartans are just even if there was only 1,000 of them against nearly 1 million soldiers, they would still agree to fight.
Yep.
Knee slap.
Hey, folks, let's go ahead and begin. So, Jaden, remember, you got to have your hood off. I don't mind if you wear a hoodie in my room. Remember, y'all can't wear those in the hallway because you get attacked.
Miss Martinez.
And other teachers, right?
And
Dr.
Dr. Gray.
Smith don't care.
Miss Martinez and Dr. Gray.
Miss Smith, this is the best. This one's great.
Okay.
This one's great.
Yeah, he's the choir teacher. I think it's just middle school. Are there any high schoolers in choir?
No.
Okay. Well, hey, maybe next year.
Only middle schoolers can sing.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I mean, there's a lot of high schoolers who like do singing for like their church choirs and stuff like that. Stuff like that. So,
You gotta have that one kid singing.
hey, folks, let's go ahead and begin and get our turns today. So, yeah, so Xerxes is on his way, and as he's moving down, he has a giant army. Now, historians disagree, Jaden, on how big that army actually was, but we do know it was huge, right? So it's really hard to tell the accuracy of historians. Most of what we know is actually from for this war is from the first history written by Herodotus. So the father of history. Okay, second time. Second time. When I'm talking, you don't talk. Goes for you too. So it's known as the father of history. He's writing about all this, and he's exaggerated about a lot of things. Like in Herodotus's history, he would talk about like people with dog heads, or people with like their bodies are basically just 1 foot and they bounce around all the place. So he made some stuff up, right? Or at least he heard made up stories like of the Amazonians and stuff like that, and he wrote them down as if they were true. But this one, we believe he was kind of sort of accurate. So we don't have a real reason to disbelieve it. So Xerxes is coming along. He has a giant army. He has a navy that's carrying a lot of food and things like that for his army. But they have to pillage the land side, steal or coerce food from the people that they're coming across. So this is always devastating in ancient times. Whenever an army's coming around, they take your food and stuff. And the army's so big, they step on all your crops and they steal your animals, and they don't always treat the people very well. Sometimes they abuse them and steal their wealth. So this is a hard thing on the Greeks going by, but they're too big to resist. So that's going to be a big problem for the Greeks, but they're very scared because they know if you do not submit to the Persians, they kill all of you. And if you do, they generally leave you alone. But we're going to see later on the Greeks who do submit to the Persians, and they don't even join their side. They just accept them as their rulers. The other Greeks are going to get very mad about that later. There's going to be some revenge over it. So they're moving along, and the Greeks hear about this happening because it takes a long time for people to walk across a continent, right? And so the Greeks are going to have a council on what they're going to do. Hey, Brian, you have to put that away, or I'm going to have to take it away. So when the Greeks have this council, they're disputing who's going to be in charge. This guy up here, his name's Gelo of Syracuse. We've talked about the tyrants of Syracuse before. So they don't have what you would call a typical monarchy, because like in a monarchy, monarchies usually have a religious element to it, and it's hereditary. With the tyrants of Syracuse, sometimes it was hereditary, but it was always the guy who had the most soldiers got to be in charge. But Syracuse was on the island of Sicily off the coast of Italy, and it was super rich, very wealthy. It was one of the richest places in that part of the world. So he was able to afford a very large navy and a very large army, but he wanted to be in charge of everything. The Greeks didn't trust him because he was a bully. And they thought he wanted the glory for himself, and they thought if he won, he would have took over the rest of Greece. So they denied him. So who did they put in charge of the land?
Sparta.
Who did they put in charge of the water?
Athens.
Athens, right? And so they're going to have this joint rulership or generalship of the military.
It's like Wario.
Yeah, that's actually, this is the Persian immortals I was telling you about. So they wore fancy pants. And to the Greeks, men didn't wear pants. Only barbarians wore pants. And so the Greeks saw this as very unmanly. I mean,
Unmanly.
yeah, unmanly to wear pants. A real man wore a skirt in Greece.
Yeah,
Amber.
I'll bring a skirt
So.
next Monday.
It makes logical sense for women to wear pants and for men to wear skirts.
I
How?
know it's
How?
But-
Think about it.
Shut up.
I thought about it, and I said you're wrong.
Okay.
All right.
I never said you had to agree.
You're wrong.
Well, in any case.
But that's just a theory.
In any case, I'm glad to wear pants, just to tell you the truth. I mean,
I never wear shorts.
or
Or
okay.
skirt.
But
I don't know. Skirts.
But yeah,
feel weird.
the thing
They're
is,
fine, they're cute.
these guys, they were pretty lightly armed, but they were still well trained, stuff like that. And remember, there's like 10,000.
Why do they look like jesters?
I won't go out in public in my shorts.
Well, here's one thing.
I want-
Ancient people, things like dye was like to dye clothing different colors other than just like brown and white was super expensive. So this was a sign of wealth.
How about
One thing about
they had no fashion sense. You're not
Well,
telling how ugly you are.
And that's another thing too, right? So this goes to show how the taste of
Right,
people,
don't go with flash.
this goes to show how the taste between people in Western cultures and what we call the Orient is different. So the Greeks, yeah, they would agree. They would have saw this and they were like, wow, they're so flashy. It looks ridiculous. They would have said, like, once again, it's another thing they would have said it's very unmanly and like a sign of living luxuriously instead of like tough. Yes.
That's obviously so they don't hit their own people with their arrows.
That makes sense, right? So don't shoot at the people with all the bright colors and the disco.
Then it makes them an easier target.
Yeah,
for
that's
the
what I was
other
gonna say.
team.
You just see the archers and like, where are the immortals at? A bunch of brown people and rainbows in one
Like,
section.
Girl, I know who they are.
Camouflage was the opposite of what generals wanted in the ancient armies. You wanted your armies back then to be distinct, like you could tell the difference by their colors. In places like China and Japan, you had soldiers with big poles tied to their backs with flags on them.
Oh yeah.
So a general could watch and tell, it's like, okay, these are these soldiers, and they could tell where they're going based on the flags.
Imagine having to fight with a giant Polish. This
Yeah,
one
it'd be
is
tough. It would be tough. But it would also
No,
let
you
you
just
know not
lean
to
down
shoot your own
and-
guys with
no.
arrows and stuff.
No, dude, you could just lean down and spin in a circle, and you'd have like a radius of protection because the pole would hit everywhere.
Yeah, but you're so tight with your your friendly forces, it would
You just see
probably.
one-
Helicopter.
You just see some Japanese dude that gets tired, pulls out the point like.
Use it as a giant like rod, like get away.
The thing is, though, like even with them, they still, when they did their melee, they were still tight together, right? You're still tight with the guy next to you, so a lot of this stuff was. They couldn't really spread out and swing like that often.
Was samurai Japanese or Chinese?
That's Japanese. And it's gonna be way after this period. It's not gonna be till later.
So like, when are we gonna study samurai?
I don't know. You have to do that on your own. I mean, like, well, could talk a bit about them a little. I mean, I talked like briefly about the end of the shogunate period in world history next year. We want to talk about the modernization of Japan, but I mean, like, as far as like how samurai lived and stuff like that.
You know those extra history?
Yeah, they do.
They have a series on things to go.
Yeah, maybe sometime we can watch them. But hey, okay, so what about the size of Xerxes' army?
Big.
Big, okay, like,
The number was, I think, 1,700,000.
so, yeah, we'll just say, like, we don't really care too much about the numbers. We do want to know, like, it's so big. So, yeah, over 1 million infantry. And infantry is your foot soldier.
Cannon.
And back then it was. The word infantry comes from the French word for child. And in the Middle Ages, the knights would say, send in the children. So they'd send in all the peasants with pitchforks to go die first before they went in and played whack-a-mole from a horse.
Metal.
And we know that, yeah, most people who died in medieval battles from head wounds, they can tell from like excavations at battle sites. There's a lot of skulls with holes in them. So,
Just
yep,
Actually,
it was whack-a-mole.
what they do is they take their sword and
You just see some guy riding on the horse.
swing it by.
yeah, you should just ride your horse and just hold your sword out like this.
That
It
would
doesn't make any sense.
You would
Because they
fall.
have a big spike.
Every time you
ball,
would hit someone, that would
Uh-huh.
be that.
So it's different fashion.
Hold on to your horse better.
Yeah, but
I don't know why
It's
they do
crazy.
that.
That's how it would work.
because, well, I'm gonna think about it. You like that sort of.
It's like the deflecting edge off someone's brain.
Well, the thing is like with a sword can cut, but most of the damage is more of a bludgeoning damage. So it's like it's heavy, it's metal. Like, and you can tell this like if you're ever taking a machete and you try to cut like something that's a little too thick for it, it doesn't cut through it; it just kind of bangs it. You know, so it's kind of like that.
What about a Japanese?
Hey, well, first off, hey, so they had over 1 million infantry. What about other forces?
Wait, they have like 10,000 cavalry.
My friend is.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So over 10,000 cavalry. And these are the guys who are fighting on horseback. Expensive, all that stuff. What about their navy?
How many warships? I know they have like a.
Big old navy.
Big old navy.
They-
Right there.
see, here it is. There were 1,207 warships and 3,000 smaller vessels.
Yeah, so like over 1,000 ships. So here's the thing. A Greek city, a normal Greek city, might have about a dozen or 24 ships. He's bringing-
1,000.
So he's bringing this. So the Greeks are really in trouble. So this
I
is
to
like
see go against our navy.
overkill.
But they weren't very good fighters. Cannonballs against.
We'll see that. We'll see that.
I really.
Literally, Sparta's like, they literally said that if even Sparta has 1,000 people,
They still
Sparta
fight.
is just gonna go.
Because they're not supposed to run. Hey, what about supplies? How did they get supplies?
They stole it from the poor.
Yeah, so
I still from the rich. Give to the poor.
they took
No, that.
Give to the rich.
food
Yeah. Robin Hood, after the person he gives all his money, becomes
and
rich.
water.
Now I'll give to the rich.
And then you steal it and give it back to the rich. Then you steal it and give
The
it back.
locals
Stole
as they travel.
locals. It literally said that they drank some rivers dry.
Now,
We're just like, but okay.
yeah, I mean, I can
Isn't
see like,
rivers constantly being replenished by the mountain or whatever.
yeah, so that seemed like an exaggeration. But maybe a pond
They
here
drink
and
it.
there, you know?
There's a
All right,
lot of people. Imagine like if they drink from a pond, you see a little fish just.
yeah. I don't know how that would work, because you're right, yeah, because it's trickling down from,
A mountain
another
usually.
source. Yeah, usually a mountain. Hey, what about the Council of Corinth?
What's the smart guys?
Wouldn't stop fighting over literally everything.
Like,
Aren't they the people?
Who should mostly who should lead
yes,
the armies? And
So,
who should lead the
that's
military.
right. The Greeks met to discuss defense and leadership and who would lead.
The people who lived in
But it was
Corinth
mainly
were called
defense
Corinthians.
because everyone knew that it was going to end up being Sparta.
And so, yeah, Sparta was in charge of,
It was really just a meeting to pledge allegiance to Sparta.
well, kind of, at least in battle. Because remember, these guys, they're trying to make a confederation. And a confederation is when you agree to a common defense, but not a common government.
Like when like the allied forces.
Yeah, something like that.
They're not all gonna be like, let's follow what America does. They're all just like, hey, we're friends with you.
Well,
We're gonna fight on your side, but we're not gonna follow you.
kind of, but see, in that, our soldiers were in charge of our guys, their soldiers were in charge of their guys.
Yeah.
We're a confederation, you might have like a common general or something like that in charge of all of them. So, in charge of the land forces, and like y'all said earlier, and Athens
Who would lead?
led the navy. And so by having this, being in agreement with this, you always want your defense and your military to have one person in charge. Because if there's a council, people argue and they can't make their minds up. And it delays action. And if you delay in war,
You
you
die.
lose. Yeah, you lose because decisive action, that quick, just bias for action will have you win.
Why didn't everyone just shoot arrows?
Hey, last one. So like what Greeks do, they consult the Oracle of Delphi. And what does the Oracle give advice to Athens about, Jaden? You're not talking? No, I said, what is the, not listening again. What did the Oracle tell Athens? Yeah, I was like, well, what? Why do you gotta look at the book? I only had to read like a little over a page. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Can I like cut my foot off? Like doing this.
If you want.
Sure, after you graduate and you're out of school, go ahead. No, don't do that. Do you remember something about walls?
Yeah, wooden walls.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wooden walls keep you safe. Yeah.
It says
Alright.
if you went into your boats, you will still live.
Yeah, so told Athens.
How did they know exactly what to say though? Like,
Just guess. Rely on its wooden walls. They didn't have wooden walls, did they?
not that.
They didn't, so they had to make some.
And they made them into. So you're right. It's boats. So yeah. So Themistocles, remember, he's the big Navy guy in Athens. He's kind of in charge now.
So they made a wall out of boats.
No. They're saying it's a figure of speech. They're saying boats are like some folks said that what used to have wooden walls back in the ancient times.
This old country. What was
The Acropolis, that's like the fortress on a hill. They said it used to have wooden walls. But Themistocles said, no, it's our Navy. Our Navy, the boats are basically made of wooden walls, right? So Themistocles said, trust in
Me.
their ships. And he's going to be right. So
What would have happened if they actually made wooden walls?
the Persians would have killed them all. As we're going to see later that Persia, when we come back Monday, is going to go to, Themistocles is going to have the Athenians evacuate Athens because the army's coming and it's too big for them to stop. And that some of the Athenians stay. And kind of like if there's like a forest fire and they say, get out of your house, the people who don't get out of their house burn to death. It's like this here. They say, get out of Athens now. Some people stayed, Persians killed them all. And the Persians were so many of them, they couldn't have been.
So
they wouldn't
everyone who
have
left on the boat lived.
lived, yeah. And then eventually when the Persians try to have a naval battle with them, Greeks will win. And we'll see all that. We come back next week. So, next week we're going to discuss chapter 11 and all that good stuff. So I'll see you later, kids. Have a safe weekend.
Bye, people.